My name is Jessie Allen. I'm a 60 Scoop survivor and the daughter of a residential school survivor. We're here basically to ask people to basically quit burning down churches. We're concerned about the burning and defacing of churches bringing more strife, depression, and anxiety to those already in pain and mourning. Former survivors of Canada's residential schools are triggered by the sight of burning and defaced churches. It also brings up former traumatic feelings of violence and threats to their lives. This is also putting further division between Canada's Indigenous people and the rest of Canadian society. Some residential school survivors have remained Catholic and now have lost their place of worship and comfort. These hostile acts are spreading into the Anglican Church. Figures of the explorers are being destroyed, as well as street ministers in the downtown east side have been verbally attacked, almost assaulted because they're Christians. This is not our native way. We do not hate people. We do not spread hate. We love people. We do not destroy other people's places of religion. We're asking for people who are setting these fires to stop now. We understand some people believe that they're standing in solidarity with us Indigenous people as we find more graves across Canada. Burning down churches is not in solidarity with us Indigenous people. As I said, we do not destroy people's places of worship. If you want to stand in solidarity with us, greet us and mourn with us. Stand and mourn with us in our grief as our children's bodies are being recovered. We ask for Canada for their support during this time. Violence begets violence. So we're asking people who are lighting churches on fires to stop. Not every denomination in Canada was involved with the residential schools. And so these fires are now spreading into other churches, such as, right now the Anglican Church is actually being firebombed, and yes, they were involved with the residential schools, but they also apologized. We can see this getting much worse and worse, and what's going to happen is if this keeps up, whoever's doing this, you're going to wake up a very ugly, evil spirit in this country. And it's going to spread across this country. And it's going to destroy it. So right now, once again, we ask people to stop burning down churches. If you want to support us, you can stand with us and you can mourn in our grief and support us as we discover more graves across this country. Would you like to talk?
Sure. My name is Gennargy O'Sullivan. My first name is Cheryl Dolores Williams. That's the name that I was born with. And then after I went to residential school, was fostered out, I was adopted by Kathy O'Sullivan and Jerry O'Sullivan. And they gave me the name Cheryl Dolores Gennargy O'Sullivan. And recently, in a ceremony, and a couple of years ago actually, I was given a name Ga'akstasilis, and that name means that where you go to get your information in the morning so that you can decide what to do with the rest of your day. And lately I've been reading that there are about 7 churches that have been burnt down to the ground. Many think it's Indigenous people who have done this. I personally do not believe that we would do such a thing. It's not in our heart. It isn't in our soul. And it's disappointing to see that. It's traumatizing on many levels, because if you think about when Indigenous people were first colonized, it was our totem poles that were burnt to the ground. Our ceremonial houses, our big houses, our long houses, burnt to the ground. Our masks, our regalia. This is not our way. We would not do something like this. And it begs to question who would do this, when you know that if those churches are burnt to the ground, with that goes all of the evidence, the archives of who were and who was running those churches during the residential school era. It doesn't make sense. It isn't practical. Doesn't make any sense to burn these churches to the ground, because with those churches goes the evidence. And so I don't believe that burning the churches is a good thing for Indigenous people. What it is doing to us is villainizing us, when really we are the victims. And it just points the finger right back at us. While the churches are pointing the finger at government, government is pointing the finger at churches. The Queen is pointing their fingers at the churches, at the RCMP, and the government of Canada. It's just wrong, and it should stop, and it is not going to help us to build relationships or rebuild relationships with religion, with the government, or with even the RCMP. It's counterproductive, and it really needs to stop so that we can focus on the children that have yet to be found. That is what is important, and if you think that you are out there burning churches down on our behalf, it isn't helping. That isn't allyship, it isn't support, it isn't the kind of support we need. What it is evil. And so, back off from burning down those churches, and maybe light a candle, maybe a sacred fire, heal. Let's begin this healing process. Be the medicine to yourselves and to the people, as my friend Oz 12 says. Gaila Kasla, Hala Kasla.
Well, maybe since the microphones are still pointed at you, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
How do you feel also about the statues that have been defaced and pulled down? Is it the same sort of idea that you feel are?
I think I think that they're very transparent when people are pulling down the statues and defacing it, and there's no question about who is doing that. What was the question?
That was it.
Yeah.
It's just the comparison, and you're strongly against the burning of the churches, but the statues are a little less concern for you, or no concern at all.
Well, I think that it's still of concern, but I think the transparency is really essential right now. If you are taking action, be proud of it instead of hiding behind our people.
Grace? Any chance you could come closer, Grace? So that... Thanks, Grace. Yeah, it's deep request. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I just wanted to ask your comment. Harsha Walia with BC Civil Liberties Association had tweeted out in response to learning that two more churches had burned down. She said, "Burn it all down." I don't know if you're aware of that tweet. Yeah.
I actually talked to her this morning about
Okay,
this.
well, we do have to move the mics.
This morning I had a conversation with Harshawali about what she had said, and she claimed that she'd been misquoted, and there's a right-wing newspaper said that. I accepted whether it's an excuse or not. I accepted what she had to say. We had a conversation about it, and I explained to her that not all the churches, not all the denominations were involved in residential school. So when she says burn them all down, that means the Pentecostal church, that means the Salvation Army church, which is doing amazing work in Canada and had nothing to do with residential school. So we had to talk about how this was actually going to affect the relations between Indigenous people and Canadians, and how as Indigenous people we don't recommend people to destroy places of worship. And so she said she thanked me for that teaching, and then that was it.
She claimed she was misquoted.
Yeah, Arshawali claimed to me she was misquoted and that it was taken out of context.
Okay, because in terms of the misquote, it was a tweet.
Yes, I know. I know. I basically, like I said, I've accepted what she has to offer. I'm like, okay, we'll take that at face value, whatever, right? But she says that she was, it was taken out of context. So, I'll just accept her apology wherever she's at with it.
But you would obviously not condone some...
No, we don't, and I said that to her. I said, we do not, and actually I said to her, as a Native way, we do not condone destruction of worship places. As Indigenous people, we do not spread hate. How we got here was a result of hate. Someone hated us Indigenous people and felt the need to destroy us and our culture. And so 150 years later, we're still at this place where we're having religious wars with each other. Well, we hate you because you hated this, you hated that. And so people are burning down people's places of worship as a result of this hate. And I explained to Harshawali how her behavior is keeping that spirit of hate going. And then as I explained earlier, I said to her, if you keep this up, this is going to cause a very evil spirit to come to life and spread across this country and destroy it.
Yeah. So it sounds like I understand you're accepting her explanation that she was
I accept.
But whereas now
Yes.
I mean, what?
That's what I very strongly said to her what I said, and I said, okay, I'll forgive you for what you've said, and I okay, whatever, like, you know, whatever your excuses, whatever, but I'm going to explain to you why what you said is so damaging and dangerous in this country, especially a person who's a leader of a human rights organization.
Okay.
This is Pastor Gloria, who's a pastor, the senior pastor of this place you're here, and she has some words she'd like to say also.
Thank you. My name's Pastor Gloria Keeler, and I'm pastor of Living Waters here. And I've been down here over a 35-year period working with the Indigenous people and feel very close to them and know them as friends, and have had them stay here and things like that. And Jen's my assistant pastor. I just want to say a few things. I'm from a family, my mother's family were Catholics in Saskatchewan in the 30s, and they had a hard time there. But we were no longer with the church after they came out here to BC. What I found is that this is splashing over onto everyone. I worked with the pro-life movement. I used to do media work with the Christian station across the border, and I was covering the pro-life movement here. And I worked with a majority of Catholics who were risking their lives all the time, chaining themselves to the abortion clinic and going to jail. And I just put a note about that on my Facebook. Like, just remember this: people were saving lives as well. And I got such a horrendous backlash from that. And I'm just afraid of the splash that's coming over. And also, I'd just like to speak in behalf of a group called Pink Sapphire. Not on behalf of them, I just want to mention them, that they were out on the street and they do a regular witness on the street to people and take out food and just love everyone and bring them to the Lord, and they were attacked verbally and threatened just for being out there, and called white trash and a lot of other things like that, very unpleasant. So I just want to say a word that we need to love and understand each other and work harder at it, and burning churches is not the way to go. So we want the Indigenous people to know that we absolutely love them. And we want the Catholics that we love them too. We just need to clear up the history here. Thank you. Okay, you want to wrap it up?
Well, this wasn't my idea to talk this morning. I'm Jen's neighbor, and I've got to know her like these past few weeks. I see her more like a soul sister than anything else. My name is Manon Tremblay. I'm French Canadian, so forgive me if my English is not perfect. I'm a Christian. I'm from Catholic roots. But I don't really go to church or anything. I'm not a church person, but it has saddened me to see these church being burnt. Even though I understand the anger, like if it's Indigenous people behind it, I don't know. I don't know who's behind the burning of these churches, but. If it's Indigenous people behind it, I totally understand the anger. And as I told Jen this morning, like I used to because I had a rough childhood and teenage. So I remember in my youth, I even wanted my father's place to be burned because like all the anger I had inside. So I understand the feeling, but I feel it's I feel it's really sad because what's going on, and it's just destruction, and it's it's not what we need. We need to focus on the children, the remains of the children that are still to be found, and we need to come together as brother and sisters, because that's what we are. We're all brothers. We're all brothers and sisters. Wrong has been done, and doing more wrong won't heal anything. It won't make things right.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah. So
I just want to speak to what our neighbor here has said. You know, she said, we are not sure if it is the Indigenous people who are burning these churches down. So whoever is doing this, what you're doing is putting us in this position where it looks like this is the action that we're taking. It's not a good position to put us in. It's only making things worse. For heaven's sakes, please stop villainizing Indigenous people. And I think it's important to remember that when you're talking about our friend there, an ally, saying to burn down all of the churches, we have to understand that there will be different degrees of grieving going on, and people are at different stages of their grieving. Some know more about what has happened to Indigenous people and have known it for a long time and are at a point of being angry. Some are it's starting just to click in their minds what is going on. And so they're in a deep remorse. Some are in deep denial that this isn't happening, but there are over 1,505 buried children that have been found. Children that have been found. That is not God's work, it's the devil's work for one thing. I'm not a religious person, but I know that much. And I think if you continue to put things in context and process it in the best way that you can. I, for instance, have been sitting at the vigil at the Vancouver Art Gallery guarding the tiny little shoes with other guardians, and that is how we are processing it. We're giving people a safe place to sit and mourn for those children in the most healthiest way that we can possibly do it at this point. So providing safe places is important. Burning churches is counterproductive. Those churches could be used not only for places of worship, faith, and belief, but they can also be used for housing and shelter, if nothing else, right? I think we have another person coming in the door, residential school survivor. Hi there. Okay, I'm going to step out.
This here's Jessie, who's a residential school survivor. Do you want to talk about how these church burnings are affecting you?
Not really. I don't know.
Would you like
Want
us
to speak?
to ask questions?
It's probably best, yeah.
Jessica, thanks for talking to us. Just tell us your thoughts, particularly from your standpoint as a survivor, on these vigilante, it seems, crimes. They are burning down churches. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't think they should be doing that. I don't know.
Can you tell me why you think why it's
Because it's not going to bring back anybody.
Can you talk about, if you're okay with this, can you talk about, since the first discovery was made, can you talk about, as a survivor, how hard this has been for you, what it's like? It brings up so many memories. If you don't want to answer that question, that's perfectly fine.
It does bring back a lot of memories. To it. But a 5-year-old, you don't give a 5-year-old tranquilizer to go to sleep. And when I found out that janitor was carrying me out of the dorm, and that's what they were telling me. And stuff like that. And it's happened to a lot of kids in that school. And which school I'm talking about is Carcross. That's in the Yukon. And that was a bad school.
May I ask how old you are?
64.
So you've lived with this for most of your life, which is probably, if you were there, how old were you when you went to the school?
I was only 4 or 5.
So you've lived with this for 60 years, and now this has come to the forefront, and the results of what has been found is devastating to all Canadians. Is there anything you can say to all Canadians, First Nations, non-First Nations, to help us understand how we can help?
I really don't know how you guys can help.
They can stand and mourn with us. They can support us
You guys can support us, that's about it.
and believe what we have to say.
Yeah, and believe what we have to say is right.
Has that been the hardest part for you, not being believed this whole time?
Yeah. Like my kids, they understand what I'm going through. I couldn't even look after my kids.
But now we know.
Yeah.
And what do you hope for the future? What do you hope comes out of this investigation?
I don't know.
You want the truth to come out.
I want
reality
the
shown.
truth, well, the truth to come out is right.
The reality of residential
Yeah.
schools shown you can't.
Yeah.
And we condemn these church fires.
Thank you, Jesse, very much.
You're welcome.
Did you want to wrap up?
Yeah, unless anyone
I
has
want to
any.
know, Jesse, tell me how many children you have.
I got 3.
3 children, and how are they coping with all of this news that we're sharing?
They're doing okay.
Are you guys talking?
Yeah, we're talking on the phone all the
Closer
time.
now?
We've always been close.
Always been close. Wow, you're so lucky.
I talked to them about residential school, what happened and stuff, and they understand.
You understand now, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, do you guys have any questions? Okay. And I guess, yeah, then I guess we'll wrap this up now.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you so much for coming out, everybody. And thank you for coming out and listening to us and hearing our stories. And like I said, our call is to tell people to stop bringing churches down and to support us Indigenous people where we're at in our grief and mourning.